Okay, welcome in. I haven't done a video in probably like 3 months now. I figured I'm a little overdue. Football season is now finally upon us. I say this in almost all my videos. It is definitely the longest off season of all four professional North American sports. So thank goodness we got football back. So for the first time in like 3 years, the Chiefs are not playing on opening night. Thank goodness. The Philadelphia Eagles obviously defeated Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Therefore, they have the first scheduled game of the 2025-26 campaign, and how fitting that they're playing against an NFC East rival in the Dallas Cowboys. A couple of key factors for both squads. For Dallas, obviously, if Prescott can stay healthy, that's a big factor. He can be a major X factor for them. CeeDee Lamb is an amazing wide receiver. Now, the only question I have is on defense, whereas the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons, I apologize, away to the Packers. Is that going to be a bit of a factor? Will Dallas's defense be able to withstand Philadelphia's offense? It's a 50-50. They either will or they won't. For Philadelphia, obviously, you got Jalen Hurts. You got Saquon Barkley. Is he going to have another encore 2,000 rushing yard season this upcoming year? As long as he can stay healthy, I say why not? They're a run-heavy offense. They love the RPO. And then obviously they got the tush push, which the league still is not against. So, I mean, they're definitely more heavy on the run than they are throwing the ball. I'll give the edge to the defending Super Bowl champions in this matchup, and I will do a force win in this column. We'll see how they do uh, once the game is all done. The next game is actually taking place in Brazil as the Los Angeles Chargers, the home team, taking on the AFC West foe, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs obviously went to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they lost. So this is more than likely going to be like a revenge tour. They're out to prove that they still are elite. They are very competitive. I mean, they have won 3 Super Bowls in the last 6 years. So you could technically say they are a dynasty. But they definitely want to get back to the Super Bowl, back to the big dance. And we'll see how their journey is throughout the 18-week season. So Mahomes and Reed, by far the best quarterback and coach duo as we speak. They're basically like the modern day Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Always successful, always winning divisions, always playing meaningful games in January and February. And I still think they're going to be competitive for probably another few more years, at least until Andy Reid decides to hang him up and Mahomes gets out of his prime. I think the Chiefs are still going to be a threat in the AFC West. Focusing on the Chargers now, you have Justin Herbert, who is now entering, I believe, his fourth or fifth season. Had 2 successful years, making the postseason in 2023 and obviously last year. Unfortunately, he has not had a W in the postseason. Year 2 of Jim Harbaugh. How will that affect this team moving forward? Will they be better? Well, on paper, they should be. So I definitely can see both these teams qualifying for the playoffs if I had to make a prediction right now. But as for this game, I'll give the edge to the Chiefs. Like I said, I just think they got a big chip on their shoulder. And it doesn't matter where they play, whether they're home or away, they're going to be very competitive all year long. All right, the next batch of games take place on Sunday. We have the Battle of Ohio as the Cleveland Browns are playing host to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, believe it or not, although the Bengals are obviously have had more success than the Browns have, the Browns have actually had Joe Burrow's number at home in Cleveland. If I'm not mistaken, in the 4 seasons or the 5 seasons he's been a starting quarterback in this league, I think he's only had one win in Cleveland in that 4 or 5 year span. So it's crazy to think, even though the Browns aren't that great, they just seem to have their state rivals' number when it comes to home games. And the other thing for the Bengals is they've been getting off to a lot of slow starts in the past couple of seasons. I'm pretty sure last year they started off 1-3. The year before it was just like that again. So it's hard to climb out of that hole, even though it is early in the season. But I mean, if they didn't have a slow start last year, I 100% guarantee they would have made the postseason, if not for the division, at least for a wild card spot. They just fell one game shy. So if they can get off to a better September this year, I definitely think they'll get back into the postseason. So a couple of key factors for me in this matchup. Obviously, you got Joe Burrow, who had an amazing season. If I'm not mistaken, I think he had like 40 touchdowns and 6 picks. It was crazy. He would have been the MVP of the league had his team made the playoffs. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be. Jamar Chase just coming off the triple crown, if I'm not mistaken, most catches, most yards, and most touchdowns out of all the receivers in all the league. Can he repeat that? I don't see why not. These two were dangerous in college at LSU, if I'm not mistaken, and now they're teammates yet again. So they're going to be a very dangerous quarterback and wide receiver duo for many, and I mean many years to come. For the Browns, seems like every year the same question comes up. Do they finally have a starting quarterback? Do they have a quarterback? Well, I believe they possibly do, uh, but they got a lot of QBs on their roster. But who is really going to come away as the starter? Only time will tell. If I'm not mistaken, I think Joe Flacco is named the starter. I'm pretty sure he's back in a Browns uniform. So we'll see how the Browns do. Um, and then the big, obviously, X factor for the defensive side for the Cleveland Browns is Myles Garrett. He's going to be a force to reckon with any offensive lineman, and he can definitely get to the QB and stop the run too. So he's going to be very dangerous as long as he can stay healthy for the full schedule. I'm going to give the edge to Cincy. I think they finally break that that record of losing games on the road against their state rivals. I'm pretty sure they won last year for the first time. That's what I mean. Like, this could be a trap game for the Bengals. They really got to be careful with this and don't take the Browns lightly at all. But I think that as long as the Bengals can get the win, start the season above 500, that should help them stay competitive throughout the season, competing for a playoff spot. So I'll do my force win away for this matchup. All right, the next one we have takes place in Washington as the Commanders came off a very strong season just last year, are taking on their NFC East rivals and the New York Football Giants. For the Giants, their D is pretty good, but will it be good enough to hold Jaden Daniels, Rookie of the Year in his sophomore season, to a poor performance? It is very unlikely, but who knows what can happen. The Giants are starting Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback. Now, I did talk about how the Cleveland Browns had a handful of QBs on their roster, but the Giants, they got a stack of players. They got Russell Wilson, they got Jameis Winston, and then they just drafted. Oh my gosh, I should have looked up his name. I apologize, but they do have his rookie quarterback as well. So they're stacked when it comes to the QB position. I think they'll be a little bit more competitive this year, but I just think that division is just so tough. When you have the Commanders and the Eagles and the Cowboys, I just don't see a scenario where the Giants leap over one or multiple teams in that division. Speaking of the Commanders, obviously they had a very strong season last year, going all the way to the NFC Championship. I don't know if they'll get back to that level, but I mean, I could bite my tongue as well. But I do see them being competitive, and I would not be surprised if they finish as a wild card team again. I know there's the sophomore jinx, and then obviously injuries can play a factor into whether your team is successful or not. But I just think they're just too powerful of a team. And now that they added Samuel, I believe, from the San Francisco 49ers, I just think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with in the NFC. So I will force a home win for the Washington Commanders. Now, there's been a lot of interesting matchups so far, and there still will be even more, but this one definitely takes the cake. You have the New York Jets playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Under any other circumstance, this would mean absolutely nothing because both of these teams are kind of on different paths. The Steelers are still looking for that consistency of staying above 500 in Mike Tomlin's 20th year of being a head coach. And for the Jets, they're just trying to get back to being competitive again. I think the last time they made the playoffs was 2011, so they're definitely on a 13 or 14-year drought. They would love to end that. Do they have the quarterback now? Maybe, as Justin Fields, a former quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers just last year, has now joined the Jets, so he is hopefully foreseen as a quarterback moving forward for them. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, they got the Jets' former quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. And I'm willing to bet this is going to be his swan song. This will be his final year of the NFL. Unless he has a miraculous year, an MVP type year, and drags his team to the Super Bowl, and wants to go and try and get one more chip. I just don't see an idea where any other team would take a gamble on a 40-plus-year-old quarterback when there's so many other options in the league. No disrespect to Rodgers, but after the past couple of seasons, his numbers have definitely gone down. You can't deny that. So I just think this is more than likely going to be A-Rod's last year in the NFL. And it's been a hell of a career. He did have the Super Bowl win back in 2010. Unfortunately, he has not been back to the big dance since then. So can he drag this Steelers squad back to there? Only time will tell. This was a very tough decision for me as to who would win, who wouldn't, because you almost got two quarterbacks that my franchise gave up on me. They didn't want me to be there. So both Fields and Rodgers, I'm sure, would love to be able to stick it to their former teams. I'll give the edge to the Steelers in this matchup. I don't know. There's just something about Mike Tomlin. The guy's got a way of, he's like a quarterback guru. I mean, yes, he was gifted Ben Roethlisberger in his rookie season as a quarterback, and he had him for many, many years. But it doesn't matter who he has at the QB position. He just seems to have success. Again, he's never had a season where they finished below 500. At worst case scenario, I think they finished at 500 when they were like 8-7-1. This was many years ago. But again, never had a season where he's been below 500. And I think that streak could possibly continue. There's just, again, he just has that aura. There's just something about him and that coaching staff that they know what they're doing. And I guess the management position as well. So I'll give the edge to the Steelers with the away victory in this month. All right, the New England Patriots taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Two teams that have a little bit of history. If you go back to the early 2000s, you had the Deflate Gate. No, it wasn't Deflate Gate. Sorry, it was the Tuck Rule. When I'm pretty sure it was the AFC divisional round, if I'm not mistaken, or the AFC Championship game when the then Oakland Raiders played the New England Patriots. And then Charles Woodson looked like he did sack and strip and fumble the ball from Tom Brady, but then the refs overruled it. They said it was a forward pass, so it was an incompletion. And then obviously the Patriots went on to win that game. And there's been a lot of hostility, I'm sure, to this day. If you're a Raiders fan, if you remember back then, that ended up kick-starting the Patriots dynasty, and the Raiders kind of faded off the map after that. They did go to one Super Bowl, but unfortunately they got blown out by the Buccaneers, and it's been goose eggs ever since. So you have Pete Carroll, who came out of retirement, and he is now the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'm just going to say this as a quick little side note. The AFC West has 4 future Hall of Fame coaches. They do. Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, now Pete Carroll, and obviously you have Sean Payton with the Broncos. So you have 4 future Hall of Fame coaches. That's a stacked division, and that's a very tough division at that. The Raiders are obviously hoping to get better results in this year compared to last year. I think they only had 4 or 5 wins a year ago, so they were hoping to get back to be more competitive. As for the Patriots, I want to say they're slowly coming out of their rebuild. Ever since Brady left, they've been kind of mediocre at best. They had one good year where they made the playoffs, but unfortunately they lost to the, I'm pretty sure, Bills in the wild card round. They did bring in, so Belichick left after the 2023-24 season. They had Gerard Mayo as their coach in the 2024-25 year, and now they have brought back Mike Vrabel, who took a year off of football after losing his job in Tennessee. So it must be like the way where they just bring back former players and stuff like that. And I mean, Vrabel was successful in Tennessee. He brought his team all the way to a championship game, ironically against the Patriots. Unfortunately, they fell short. They did finish as the number 1 seed back in 2022. So he's had success wherever he goes. Obviously, he won some Super Bowls as a member of the New Patriots. So he hasn't had like a down career or a down whatever it is as coach or player that often. And this could be what kickstarts the Patriots back into being competitive again. I mean, to be honest, that AFC East outside the Bills is kind of up for grabs. Miami was kind of inconsistent last year. The Jets, who knows, they could be good, they could be bad. So the Patriots, they could shock a lot of people, finish as high as second in the division, more than likely third. But I think they're definitely on the up and up when it comes to getting back into being a competitive team. So I would give the edge to the Patriots in this matchup over Pete Carroll and the Las Vegas Raiders. All right. Now, this is going to be a very intriguing matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as both these teams are going to be competitive for that NFC South division. I don't see a scenario where both these teams make it to the playoffs because the NFC is just so strong, especially the NFC North. I could see two, maybe three teams coming out of that division. So realistically, there's only going to be one other spot left, and I think there's going to be a couple of teams in the NFC West that could possibly get in. There could be teams from the NFC East that gets in. So even though this is only week one of the season and there's still a lot of football to be played ahead, this is a very critical game for both these teams. You have Michael Penix in his first full season as the starting quarterback. Last year he was the backup to Kirk Cousins. Obviously Atlanta was kind of wishy-washy, and then they ended up going to Penix, sorry, to apologize towards the end of the season. And Tampa Bay, they're now looking for their fifth consecutive NFC South championship. They had two with Brady, two with Baker, and obviously Baker's now led them to in his third season with Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay is going to be a very good team this year. And if you put in Mike Evans as the X factor, does he have another 1,000-yard season in him? He tied, I believe, Jerry Rice's record at the end of last year when he only needed 5 yards. And realistically, Tampa could have ran the ball or took a knee, ended the game, but he wanted to get to that mark because, especially with that much consistency, and it's so crazy how many quarterbacks Mike Evans has had during his tenure, and he always seems to get the ball. So I believe he could possibly have one more 1,000-yard season in him easily. I'm going to give the edge to the Buccaneers against the Falcons. Okay, so we have the Indianapolis Colts. They are playing host to the Miami Dolphins. For the Dolphins, I think Tua, as long as he can stay healthy and have a good season, Miami should finish at least second in the AFC East division. I just think Buffalo is just too strong. Buffalo should be the favorite to come out of that division. The Dolphins missed the playoffs last year by a game or two, if I'm not mistaken. So they want to get back into that mix. They did have 2 years where they did make the playoffs. One where Tua started, one where Tua was hurt. So obviously they want to keep Tua healthy and concussion-free moving forward this upcoming season. So they definitely want to get back into that competitive nature. Tyreek definitely wants to get back into the playoffs. There was a whole offseason with him, but that's another story. The Colts, now, this is where I'm kind of stuck with the Colts. It's like they feel like they should be competitive, but they have not been consistent for a long time. And I don't want to say it's like the Andrew Luck curse, but ever since Luck retired, they've only really had one successful year, and that's when Phillip Rivers took over and led them to a wild card game against the Bills. Since then, they have not made the playoffs. 2 years ago, they were close. I think they fell a game short against the Texans for the division. Last year, they were close, but they still finished below 500. So it's just been too inconsistency. It's been too inconsistent at the quarterback position, in my opinion, for me to say that the Colts are on the up and up. They theoretically, on paper, should be, and they did draft Anthony Richardson to be their quarterback of the future. But Daniel Jones beat him out for the starting position. If you lose your starting job to Daniel Jones, a guy who was basically kicked out of New York because he was so inconsistent and only had one good year and got overpaid, I could go on a huge rant about that contract that the Giants gave him. But that's that's a story for another day. Now, maybe he is a little bit better than Richardson. He has to be if he's the starting quarterback. But for me, you have to think, what's the future for Anthony Richardson? Does he stick around with the Colts while they bring in other quarterbacks and he's sitting on the bench? Do they wait for Jones to have a hiccup, have a few fumbles, have a few interceptions, have poor games before they decide to put him back in? Is this just like a one-game chance for Jones to prove he is the starter, and then week 2 they go back to Richardson? It's just there's so many questions with this organization that I don't see them being competitive, and especially in that AFC South. I think the Texans got that division hands down. After that, you could say that maybe the Jaguars, maybe the Titans. The Colts could be the last team in this division. They could surprise us. They could finish second in this division. But for me, it's just been so inconsistent for so many years. Again, since Andrew Luck retired, they've only had one playoff a game, and they've been below 500 ever since. So I feel like it's almost a gimme to give the edge to the Dolphins. Okay, now we're staying in the AFC South. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Carolina Panthers. Um, both these teams could be wild cards for these divisions. They could surprise a lot of people, or they could be basement dwellers, whatever you want to call it. For the Panthers side, I just think that the Buccaneers and Falcons, who I just did a preview on, that those are the two likely top two teams in that division. And I've already talked about how the NFC North is so strong that I just don't see a scenario where three teams from the NFC South get in, let alone two. So for the Panthers, I think this is going to be another season where they are below 500. They will more than likely finish third or fourth in the NFC South. For Bryce Young, as long as he can have a consistent season, they should be a better team than they were. But because he had such a horrible start to last year, I'm pretty sure he got benched. He's just been inconsistent for the 2 or 3 years that he's been the quarterback for this squad. So this is, in my opinion, like a make or break year. You have a good year, obviously they'll want you to stick around, and maybe you can be the quarterback of the future. But if you have another season like last year where you're not that good, turning the ball over, just not seeing eye to eye with coordinators, players, whatever it is, you could find yourself back on the bench early than expected. So there's a lot of pressure on Bryce Young to be a better quarterback and to hopefully propel this team to have more wins than they did last season. The Jaguars got a new coach, which is something that I was hoping that they could have done last year, but they obviously let go of Doug Peterson, brought in a brand new coach. We'll see how he does in his first year. And Travis Hunter, can Travis Lawrence, or is it Travis Lawrence? Yeah, I think it's Trevor Lawrence. I apologize. Can Trevor Lawrence and Travis Hunter, can those be a fantastic quarterback wide receiver duo? From what I've seen in the preseason and from workouts, I don't see why not. This could be a very dangerous threat when it comes to the quarterback wide receiver position. Maybe the Jaguars, they take a step forward this year. Maybe they can be competitive. They could finish third, maybe second in that division in the AFC South. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, they could surprise a lot of people. So I do see Jacksonville having hope, and there should be some more optimism because it's been so inconsistent with Trevor Lawrence. I'm pretty sure he had a fantastic first year, and the last couple of seasons, they've just been absolute dives, to say the least. So they definitely want to have a better performance from him. They want to have a better team overall, and I think because they drafted Travis Hunter, that this could be a match made in Jacksonville heaven. So I will give the edge to the Jaguars in this game. Okay, we're getting close to being done. This might actually be like an hour-long video. So the next matchup we have takes place in New Orleans, as we have the Saints taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Both these teams missed the playoffs last year. The Saints, they're in a rebuild. There's no ands, ifs, or questions about it. They are 100% going to be in a rebuild, and I don't want to be the Debbie Downer or whatever it is, but I don't see them finishing above fourth place in that division. I've said this before. I believe the Falcons and the Buccaneers are going to be very competitive. The Panthers, they might surprise us as long as they can stay healthy and can stay consistent. So I think the Saints, third or fourth, is more than likely where they're going to finish by the end of the year. But if I was a betting man, I'd say they probably are bottom dwellers, at least for this season. It's a shame because this team's not used to being so bad for so long. They've had so much success when they had Sean Payton and obviously Drew Brees together, and they have not found that success, let's be honest, since Brees retired at the end of the 2021 season. As the Arizona Cardinals, I think this is another season that they should be better, and they could surprise myself and other people as well. They could be a top team in the NFC West. I think that NFC West is wide open. I don't think there's one team that's going to be favored over the others. But if I had to say first through fourth, the Cardinals might finish fourth in that division. It's just so competitive when you have the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Rams. All three of those teams, I think, are legit contenders to at least get the NFC West. The Cardinals, they could be a wild card. They could possibly sneak up on a couple teams. They might finish third. They could finish second. But realistically, I think you're looking at yet another fourth place finish. Unless, heaven forbid, the 49ers get hurt or they play bad or the other two teams and the Seahawks and Rams are also face the same fate. I just think it's just an unfortunate situation for the Cardinals. If they were in any other division, they'd probably have a better chance of finishing in a higher seed. But that NFC West is just so crowded with so many good teams and so much talent on those teams as well. But in this matchup, I will give the edge to Arizona. I think they should start the season off 1-0. All right, now for my game of the week. The Denver Broncos playing host to the Tennessee Titans. For the Titans, they obviously drafted Cam Ward. He will be their future quarterback. He can propel this team to greatness. Tennessee could finish with a better record than they did last year. They might finish third in that division. They can finish second in that division. They are a good team. So the Titans could surprise a lot of teams. But if I had to think who's the favorite of that division, I definitely would have to say Houston should be like the default team that automatically locks themselves in as the AFC South champs for the third year in a row. But again, the Titans, they could surprise us. They could finish second or third, or maybe because it's a rookie quarterback and he's not used to the NFL level, they could finish fourth. Like that NFC South is so wishy-washy, and there's question marks on all the teams as to are they going to be good enough, are they going to be bad. There's just a lot that could go right and a lot that could go wrong. But I think that they should have a pretty successful season, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Now, for my Broncos, best D in the league. They have an amazing pass rush. Nick Bonito is by far one of the best linebackers in the game. Now, maybe I am biased saying that because I am a Broncos fan. I've got Pat Surtain II. By far, he was voted as the top cornerback in the entire league. So, and quarterbacks, they're let's put it this, they're mindful of him. They're aware of him. There's a reason why he's not getting a lot of targets for the receiver that he's covering, because they know he can jump in, he can deflect the ball, he can intercept it. I mean, Gardner Minshew threw a pick six in the end zone, and then Pat Surtain ran back for a 100-yard TD the other way. So he can do a lot of things on defense. And as for the offensive side, I love Bo Nix. If it wasn't for Jaden Daniels, he would have won Rookie of the Year. And they just have a lot of good players all around. Now, they don't have any big names. They don't have like a Demaryius Thomas or an Eric Decker or a Wes Welker or a Brandon Stokely or a Peyton Manning. But they have a good enough offense. And I really like Cortland Sutton. And the fact that he re-signed with the team just shows how dedicated and committed he is to being a member of this Broncos squad for a few more years. I love the Broncos' chances of not only being competitive this year, they should finish above 500. Maybe they could finish better than 10-7. They could be 11-16. They could pull off a 12-5 season. And they could be competitive enough with the Chiefs that maybe they dethrone Kansas City after like 9 years of being the best team in the AFC West. There's a lot of hope and a lot of optimism around this team. I love it, and it's fun to be a Broncos fan. It's always has been, but when you're in like a decade of darkness and other teams are always above you, you're always below 500, you definitely have a good feeling and you feel a lot better when your team is winning rather than losing. So I will give the edge to the Broncos. They should get a Week 1 win against the Tennessee Titans. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more games to go. Yeah, this probably will be like an hour-long video. I do apologize, but I'm just so excited. There's just so much to talk about when it comes to football. It's been a long off season, so forgive me. Okay, so now we're going back to the NFC West. Again, this is a very stacked division as you have the Seahawks and the 49ers. Both these teams could make the playoffs. Both these teams could be NFC West champions. The Rams, I'll also include them once I preview them next. But there's just a lot of good teams. And even though the 49ers lost a lot of key pieces in the offseason, I still think as long as Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, Brock Purdy can be consistent, he can stay healthy, this could be a very good team yet again. And they could find themselves back in the playoffs after missing it out on last season. And as for the Seahawks, I'm sure it was a bitter pill to swallow when they played the Rams in Week 18. They won that game, but because of But because of the circumstances, whether they won or lost that game, they did not make the playoffs, and the Rams did. So I'm sure that they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder, considering they had the same record as the Rams. They could have had a home playoff game, but unfortunately, it was not meant to be. So I'm sure they want to get back in the playoffs too. Now, even though they did lose Geno Smith, who was a decent quarterback and did help them to get into the postseason back in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, um, they brought in Sam Darnold. And if Sam Darnold can have the same magic he has with the Seahawks as he did with Minnesota just last year, he could easily propel this team to greatness, could get them back into playoffs, could get a home playoff game, which would be incredible for this fan base. I'm sure they would love to have that. They haven't had a home game since Russ was cooking back in Seattle. So, yeah, so the big thing is, can Sam Darnold, sorry, can he have the same success as he did with Minnesota? Only time will tell. How will they gel? Again, only time will tell. And for the 49ers, again, as long as Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, they should be competitive yet again. He was hurt for all of last season for the most part. I know when they brought him back, it'd be different, and I've said this before, it'd be different if you're competitive and you're close to a playoff spot or you're competing for a playoff spot. You obviously want to bring back your X factors. You want to bring back your big time players that can play a major role in the success. But the 49ers at that point were already out of the playoff spot. I made a video where I told them that they should have just rested McCaffrey for the whole year, take the year off, get healthy, and then come back for 2025. Guess what happens? He comes back, gets hurt, and then he's gone for the rest of the season. So the fact that they rushed him back, tried to get back into play, just for him to get hurt again in meaningless games was absolutely insane, in my opinion. But I'm not a doctor, and I'm not in part of the NFL, so maybe they have more knowledge than I do. Or maybe McCaffrey's just the kind of guy who hates taking time off. There could be a number of factors as to what happened last year. But in my opinion, you're hurt, sit out, especially if your team's not doing well, just wait until next year. There's always next year. For this particular game, I will give the edge to the Seahawks. The 11th man or 12th man should play a bit of a factor. And yeah, I think the Seattle Seahawks should start off 1-0 on the season. But the 49ers can easily go into Seattle and get the W as well. So I'll bite my tongue if the wrong team wins. Okay, so the last team that I can talk about now in the NFC West, and I do apologize for the blurriness, but let's see if I can just adjust that a little. Nope. Okay. The Los Angeles Rams, last year's NFC West champs, as I just talked about in the previous preview. They lost. No, they won. Sorry, they won against Minnesota, then they lost against the Philadelphia Eagles in the divisional round. So I'm sure that they're trying to get back to the big dance for the first time since 2022, when obviously they